So, Paul, how are you?
I'm very well, Madam President of Longton.
Good. I'm not sure we're going Facebook Live, but I do know that we're recording it so we can post it up later. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.
I think I remembered that we met in 1992.
I cannot remember the exact year. I know it was 1984 when I first came to Longton Church. Before Longton Church, I used to go to Longton Spiritualist Church, and my great aunt, Lavinia Berry, she was a friend of Gordon Higginson, and she rang me one Sunday morning and said, "We're off to Longton Spiritualist Church to see Gordon Higginson tomorrow. Would you like to come with us?" And I said yes, but the name of Gordon Higginson never meant anything to me, because I was fairly new to spiritualism. I'd only been going for 2-3 months to Wolverhampton Church. And when we arrived at the church, we were standing outside the church, and my great aunt and uncle introduced me to him, and he shook my hand and said hello. And even though at that particular time I didn't know whether I was a medium or not, I just heard this voice within me say, "You and him are going to become friends." And that really then was my beginning in my involvement with Longton Church, which was not the present church at the moment.
Yeah. Quite a different church in them days.
Yes, it was a very old church. It was an old Unitarian church. And it had been on the papers by the government for a compulsory order purchase for at least 20 years by then. And the day after Gordon Higginson passed, we actually received in the post the final notice from the government that we'd got to leave our church, and then we had to straight away start looking to find land to build a new church, and then also to find temporary premises, because I was determined that even though the church had got to close down and we've got to find temporary premises, build a new church, that I didn't want to lose one service.
No.
And we managed to do that. Never closed one Sunday throughout. It was a lot of work. And actually, when it came to the new church, I remember looking at the piece of land we purchased with Gordon Higginson and some of the other committee members at the time. And I kept trying to speak to Gordon about the future of the new church, and he wasn't interested. And then finally, I says, "Gordon, speak to us about it." And he says, "Paul, I won't be here when it's time for the church." So it was a difficult time. And I can actually remember the last service in the old church before we closed the doors. Our church was upstairs and we had the schoolroom downstairs. Yeah. And as the service came to an end and we had the final closing prayers, the great big wooden doors that lead into the healing rooms just came away and fell and collapsed. It was amazing. But with the new church, when I had meetings with the architects, I said to them I didn't want it to be like a community centre, I wanted it to be like a church. And even though some spiritualists disagreed, we had many beautiful stained glass windows in the old church, which were bought in memory of people's loved ones who passed on. And I thought it was wrong to leave them and destroy them. So we had all the old stained glass windows incorporated into the new church.
Yeah. So when you first met Gordon, was that at Longton?
Yes, it was at Longton Church, and I used to be terrified of it. I used to think, he's this fantastic medium and fantastic psychic, and he can see and know everything about you, and I don't want him to see and know everything about me, because there's a lot of things there that aren't very nice and that I wouldn't want him to see and know. And then I could remember going to my first weekend seminar at Lytham St Anne's. There was him, Gordon Higginson, Mavis Tiller, and Glyn Edwards. And I was sitting at the hotel bar having a drink. And I just started to get to know Gordon a little bit. And he comes walking over to me at the bar and he says, "Paul, why is it every time I come anywhere near you, your auric field just closes in like a book? He said, he said, I know everything I need to know about you. And I thought, well, if he knows everything and he still wants to be friends with me, then stop worrying about it, Paul. So I stopped closing my aura down and trying to hide who I was and what I'd been. And that's how he was. But, you know, for those of you who never met him, I know many of you have, I'm not exaggerating, you know, he would only have to shake your hand and he knew all he needed to know about you. And you only had to be in his power and presence, and you could feel a difference. I can remember in our schoolroom, you know, I could be the far end of the schoolroom and my back to the entrance, the other end, and the door would open and I would turn and I automatically knew he'd entered the room. It was the same at the Arthur Findlay College. Even when he was on his way driving, the atmosphere in the whole place would begin to change before he even arrived, because that was the emanation of his aura and his power that he had. And that's what made him different to everybody else in mediumship. There's other mediums can give contacts, given contacts maybe as good as some of them that Gordon's given. But the difference was the power that was there, that was within that communication and with him as a person, but not just as a medium, but in his everyday life. Yes, he was a human being and had human frailties. He wasn't perfect like who is. No human being is perfect. But there was just that something there that he developed, which also he really encouraged and put the emphasis on. And I can also remember, I said just a few moments ago about, I said, you know, there's other mediums who may have given contacts as good as some of the contacts he's gave. And I can remember listening to him. I was chairing for him at Longton Church, and he gave this contact. And in those days, and particularly in a Sunday service, nobody applauded. It wasn't known, and everybody applauded this contact. And afterwards, I said to him, I said, you know that contact everybody applauded? He says, yes. I said, well, I listened to that very carefully. I said, and I've given contacts as good as that, but nobody's applauded me. And he looked at me and he smiled. He says, yes, but the difference between you and me is you don't know how to highlight it and make the most of it, like me. That was, you know, I had to smile with him about that. But for me, and I know you and Mitch would have experienced some of these services, my favourite services at Longton Church was always the candlelit services on Christmas Eve, the Christmas morning service, and the candlelight Christmas Eve service, because he took the demonstration. Well, first of all, he did the Christmas morning address in trance, and the spirit world would stand him up, walk him down the steps, all through the vases of flowers, the full length of the church, back again, up the steps, back into his chair, and never faltering in his speaking or in his walking. And at that particular time, I'd got a key to the church. So after everybody got in, I let myself back in the church, and I spent 2 hours sitting in his chair on the platform and tried practicing standing up with my eyes closed, walking through the flowers and down the steps through up to the church to see if I could do it without bumping into anything, and it wasn't possible. But what was different about his demonstration, he always he brought you through clairvoyance, a gift from the spirit world, which would be a message, a symbolic message. It would be your Christmas present. And if you remember at the church afterwards, with our church circles, we used to do that sometimes between us. Remember, you and Mitch, we'd sit around the Christmas tree and we tried to do that same thing for our circle members. And, you know, I was fortunate 2 Christmas periods to have 2 of those contacts. That meant so much to me. You know, I never seen anybody else do that before he did, but those times were special.
Yes. I've got a question for you. Is it right that he once found his direction to you by asking you if you'd had crackers for breakfast?
No, what was he? he came to me direct. I didn't know him then at all. I didn't know him. I need to say hello to. So he came to me with a contact from my father, which was really the first contact I'd had from my father, from the spirit world, and he spoke about how my father had passed, and he then said, "But I'm going to." He said, "Your father's on about 3 people going to a crematorium this morning." He says, "But your father's saying there's normally 4 of you, but there's only been 3 who's gone this morning." And I says, "Yes, that's correct." I says, "The other 3 will have gone. The 4th person would be me, but I'm here, so I couldn't go to the crem this morning because I've come here instead." And then he said to me, "Can I ask?" And he knew what he'd received. This was his showmanship and playing to get the audience. He said to me, "Can I ask, did you have something different for breakfast this morning?" And I said, "No." He said, "Are you quite sure about that?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm sure you had something different." I said, "No." I said, "Actually, I've been out all night. I've come here straight from being out on the town all night to the morning service. So I've had no breakfast." And he says, "Well, why does your father then keep showing me a packet of Jacob's cream crackers?" So, of course, straight away, I just shouted, "That's our family name." So then all the audience and the congregation went, "Wow," you know. But he knew what he'd gone, but that's how he would play things in his demonstrations. But another contact I knew I had from him, I had got to know him then, and in his own church, he didn't really like going to you if he knew you. Most of us don't like doing that. And I got to the church early, and there was the 2 ladies sitting in the church, and I was standing at the back of the church. And it was in my early days of development. I still wasn't sure about my mediumship or whether I was or not. But again, I heard a voice say to me, "Sit behind those 2 ladies. He will come to you after he's been to them." And I thought, no, he won't come to me. He knows me too well. And I thought, well, if he does, the only way he can come to me is there's only one person in the spirit world strong enough, and that's my father's mother. So I thought, well, give it a try. I'll go and sit behind the 2 ladies, nothing to lose. So I sat behind these 2 ladies. First contact was for these 2 ladies. I thought, I don't believe this. And then he finished the contact, and then our platform was a very wide, long platform. And he walked from one end of the platform to the other, from one end to the other, his head holding his head in his hands, saying, "I don't want to do this. The spirit will make him, I'm going to have to, I don't want to do this." And then he says, "Paul, can I speak to you?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I've got your grandmother, your father's mother here, and if I don't come to you, she will destroy the whole of my demonstration." It was good. You see, and this is the problem is, and one thing he spoke about, which I feel is lost a lot in the training of mediumship, he believed through that power moving us to the recipient and to the people the spirit will want to speak to. And that's missing, I see in a lot of demonstrations. We just, often people have got to the stage now where, or the way a lot of people are teaching it, is giving a shopping list of information and throw it out, and everybody in the audience fight out between themselves who has the contact and who doesn't.
Yes. You didn't know how he was going to start it or what he was going to say, did you?
That's right. I can remember the first time I ever went to the North Finley College. I was still fairly new to all this, and I wasn't actually even looking to be a medium. And we had the introductory in the library. There was about 80, 90 students. And Gordon said, "We're not going to begin with the introduction tonight." He says, "We're going to start work straight away. So can I have a volunteer to call?" And
it's all right.
And so nobody put their hands up. So then Gordon said, "I don't know why you've all come. You've wasted your time and your money. You're given an opportunity to work, and you don't take the opportunity. Paul, out you come." And I said, me? And he says, yes. So I came out. He'd got a wonderful lady sitting next to him called Mary Duffy, a Scottish medium, fantastic medium, who used to come to Longton quite often. And so I said, I don't know what to do. And he just simply said, ask who's there. He didn't tell me how, or didn't take me through any technique, relax yourself through your breathing, extend your aura, take your mind out. He said, just simply ask. And this is why I teach what I teach. So automatically, without thinking about it, I went into the depths of my soul and just simply cried out to God and said, help, give me what this man wants. And I heard the thought words in my mind, Father. I didn't know whether the spirit world had given it me or whether it was my own mind. But I wasn't scared of expressing it because I wasn't trying to prove I was a medium, and it didn't matter if it was the spirit world or not to me. So I just said to somebody's father. So he said, and who does he want to speak to? I said, I don't know. He said, ask and allow their power to move you to who they want to speak to. Mm-hmm. So I did the same thing again, and as I did that, this one youngish lady from Germany actually stood out, and I said to the lady then, she said, yes, my father's in the spirit world. Then he said to me, what does he want to say? Now today, people are giving you these shopping lists of information. He didn't tell me to give the physical description, the past, the character, the personality. What did I want to say? So again, I took my mind down into the depths of my soul, asked, and I just simply heard these words, I've only just died and I've left her $500,000 in my will. And I said the words and she said, yes. Now, if everybody learned that 3 simple things from day one in their mediumship, we wouldn't have the messy mediumship we have today in a lot of cases. What's more simpler? Who's there? Who they want to speak to? What they want to say? What else do you need? Nothing. Simple as that. And from day one, from being a complete beginner, never sitting in a circle, never been to any workshops, I stuck to that formula from day one because I thought that was normal. If you go back to, when we was at Longton Church, Kath, I was the medium secretary there, and a lot of people think that in Gordon's time at the church was always successful and packed out. That's not the truth, actually. I'd only been there 2 years, and our numbers in our church were absolutely awful. The chock-a-block when Gordon was there taking the services and dems, they'd be quite full if he was just there chairing. There'd be the odd medium coming where we'd have decent numbers, but we'd drop down to about 8 on a Sunday afternoon, 20 on a Sunday night. We're lucky 30, very good if we had 40 on a Monday night. And he asked me if I would become medium secretary. So he said, we've got to do something about it, Paul. I said, yes, I agree. To be honest with you, I said, the standard's awful. That's why people aren't coming. And so he said, will you take the job on? And I said, yes, on one condition. And he says, what's that? I said, you don't interfere. Because I could speak to him in that way. And he says, okay. And I said, there's 1 or 2 mediums who you've banned from the church who are good. They're coming back as well. And we inquired, and he says, okay. And within 12 months, we'd got Sunday afternoons from 8 back up to about 40, Sunday nights back up to from 20-25 up to 80 and 90, and Monday nights up from 34 to back up to 90, even up to 120 people. And at Longton Church, we never ever did any demonstrations of mediumship for a charge. And when I was medium secretary, I said to Gordon, can I put an event on with you and Coral Polge? And he said, yes. And I said, but I'd like to charge for it. And he said, no, I'm not having people pay for a demonstration in this church. And I said, well, what if then we do a charge, but we do it for a charity? And he said, looked at me and said, okay, I'll allow it for that. Yeah. And then on the day of the demonstration, I was in the church and I was putting extra chairs out because I knew it was going to be absolutely packed. And Gordon comes down to the church early. He was as miserable as sin. He was in a bad mood with me. I said, what the hell is wrong with you? He said, why are you putting those extra chairs out? I said, because we're going to be packed. Nobody's going to come. You've not organised it very well. You've not advertised it enough. You're wasting your time and my time. Well, the church was packed to the rafters. We had people sitting on the platform, and when we had to close the doors, there was still a queue right up the street of people hoping wanted to go in. And afterwards, I just looked at him. This is why, in a way, there was a lot of people who were jealous of the friendship I had with Gordon, and it's caused me many problems even today, because people wanted the connection I had with him, and they couldn't understand why I did and they didn't. And the trouble was with most people, they wouldn't be their real self around him. I'd been always given the respect as his position and titles. It would always be Mr. Higginson. Privately, it'd be Gordon, and he could ask me things, speak to me, share things, and I wouldn't be just looking to give him what answer he wanted. I'd tell him the truth of what I thought. Where too many people were putting on these spiritual overcoats, like they'd bring flowers to the church for the church if they knew he was there, but they wouldn't bother if he wasn't there. But he could come to my home after church, and he could sit and have supper, and he could be the man. He didn't have to be the president, the medium. And all the time I knew him, and the time we spent together, I never ever asked him for a sitting or an assessment. Yeah. And I can remember saying to him one day, we was at his sister's house, Hazel's. We often would meet at his sister's house. She used to entertain most of the mediums for tea on a Sunday afternoon, and we'd sometimes either go to my house or to his sister's house for tea. And we was having lunch there, and he said to me, Paul, he says, I can't stay long. He says, I won't say the medium's name. I've got so-and-so coming, medium, coming for a sitting again. He said, I don't know why I bother. He never listens to what I have to say. And I said, Gordon, I said, can I ask you something? I said, you get all these well-known top mediums coming for these sittings all the time. And I said, but you never give me one. I said, it doesn't matter, but can I ask you why? And he says, Paul, don't you think when you're with me, I have a look to see if things are okay with you? If there's something you need to know, I'd tell you. I said, yes, of course. He says, and lastly, he said, I'm not always going to be here. He said, and I want you to be strong enough to stand on your own 2 feet. Yeah. He even went on a course at Stansted, and on the course, in your course fee, every student was getting a free assessment with Gordon. And on the way home, I actually drove him there and drove him back. I said, Gordon, can I ask? I said, you've given everybody assessment. We're all supposed to get one. And I said, but you're not giving me one. And he just looked and he just smiled. He said, well, that's okay. And I was thinking,
you didn't need one. So your involvement in the church, I'm sure you didn't aim to be as involved as you eventually became in the church.
No, I didn't. By circumstance, and also, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't easy to be because of the friendship again I had with Gordon, and there was a lot of jealousy for people in the church, and there was particularly quite a large group of people in the church who classed me as an outsider because I wasn't from Longton Stoke-on-Trent, I was from Wolverhampton, and because Gordon ran a tight ship, there was quite a group of people who wanted their own way and things, and I actually heard them say, when Gordon's gone, we can get what we want, and then when I became president, then we could see I kept doing my best, and I kept trying to bring down, trying to create. The old members, committee members who were still there, they were very supportive, like Kath Jones, vice president for 50 years, Billy Abbott. Gordon's committee, I remember I applied for their long service award. They were committee members for over 50 years, and they were at that church week in, week out, week in, week in. And they gave me a lot of support and strength. And our church was successful. And even after when Gordon passed the spirit world, everybody expected it to go down, but it didn't. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I became medium secretary, it didn't actually make me very popular with all the other mediums in the West Midlands, because I cancelled most of the bookings. Because at the time, if you don't trend, you've got 7 spiritualist churches, all on, everybody's doorsteps. And what was happening was, I'm not saying there wasn't any good local mediums in the West Midlands at all, I'm not saying that, but it was the same mediums week in, week out at the 7 churches. So what I tried to do was bring the best I could possibly could from anywhere in the country, whether it was from Aberdeen, whether it was from Cornwall, it didn't matter where I brought them. But then they would come for the whole weekend, and also, which was a big commitment. So then it meant the medium needs. So I hosted the mediums, so they'd come on a Friday, probably go home on a Monday night or a Tuesday. So I'd host them, care for them, feed them, paid for it all out of my own pocket. It didn't cost the church anything, but it was able to bring those quality mediums and make sure they were looked after well, And, I think one of the things in a lot of our churches today, we don't have enough people committed to being of service outside being a medium and a healer. If you look, I remember saying to the spirit world, once I'd received that evidence from Gordon, I said to the spirit world, I want to be of service. I want to give back for what I've received and found. I don't care whether it's cleaning the church floors or raising money for the church, And if you look at the team Gordon had around him, you remember Marjorie, the treasurer, she was also the organist, period of time, the healing reception. And I can remember late in her 80s, she said to me, Paul, she says, do you think I've done enough now, after 50 odd years, to pay God back and Gordon for the healing I had, because she came to the church, 50 odd years earlier because of cancer. And that was it with this committee. That were, Gordon had actually very few mediums. Some of them might have been healers in the church, but he didn't really have other mediums because they're never in the church to support and do the hard work. And if we look, how we could afford to pay for all those mediums to come all those distances. Most churches struggle to pay the travel distance, not even if the medium's doing it free because of the costs of the travel. But, if you look at what went on at our church, there was so much activity. So as long as our collections from the 3 services covered the medium's fees, that was fine. We didn't need any other money from the collections to run the church. We had our Christmas fair, which was 3 days. I think the highest we ever took was £3,500 at our Christmas fair. From the classes and the circles we were, we're bringing £5,000 a year. When the mediums came for the whole weekend, they do a whole day sitting, so there's money from sittings. We put on a seminar once a month. We put on a big special seminar where people came from all over the country for a 3-day with top names that we could make £3,000 out from the church. So we survived and made money. And when we had the new church built, we had we'd saved, because we knew for 20 years, we'd saved £300,000 for the new church to be built. And I personally, along with the treasurer, did the negotiations with the government, and we managed to get the new church built without spending a penny of our own money. But for 20 years, the church members and the committee were working hard to build and save that money. I can remember, I don't know if you remember those, Kath, when we used to have, every year we'd have a ladies' week and a men's week. And the ladies would organise spiritual events and social events for the week. And then the men would have the next week, and we would organise spiritual events and social events, and be a competition who could put on the best events, the best platforms, the best social things, and who could raise the most money. absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I can remember the ladies, though. I think it was one of the best things ever. The ladies on one of their weeks, they put on an event, they put on a play. It was called Henry VIII in the Etheric. And they've got this box made, I think it was Gordon's old physical cabinet, and they made it with flashing lights, and it was a lift that would send you up to heaven or send you down to hell. And the lectern, they had I forget the guy's name who played the part now, and he was St. Peter at the gate, and all the wives and Henry VIII had to come up to meet St. Peter at the gate. And then St. Peter decided to go to heaven or hell. And the way it was going, everybody was expecting all the wives to go to heaven and Henry VIII to hell. And it was the other way around. Henry VIII went to heaven and all the wives went to hell. It was so funny. It was a hilarious occasion, and there was that community spirit. As you know, because you were secretary for a long time there, and you worked a lot with me. Where we tried to do a lot of social events. We changed Harvest Festival, where I don't know, it didn't seem at that particular time people were bothered about bringing produce too much, or people didn't need the produce to be taken out. So what we did for Harvest, we did a Thanksgiving where, remember, we would put on a service, and then after the service, we do a cooked meal supper free of charge for all the members as a thank you. At Christmas time, my whole family, we would come and cook a fresh, full course Christmas dinner, and me and my family would cook it and serve on the tables. So again, it could be a thank you for the committee members and their work, and the members for the store, and bringing everybody together. And I think that's what we lack. And people, I know we all have busy lives, but people don't give the time, or don't have the energy, or the space. If you look at, we were at the church sometimes 7 days a week. When the new church was being built, when the new church was being built, I was living in Wolverhampton. It was a 40-odd mile drive there and back, and I travelled every day there and back to see every brick laid. The commitment and sacrifice. But we don't have the people. You may get the odd one, or here and there in our church committees, but it's hard to build a team that will give so much commitment, And what we've got to remember is, serving is not just being about a medium, I wasn't breaking my neck to be a medium or a healer. There's so many forms of service, and that's why, those people, I often say, like Billy Harris and Kath Shirley and Marjorie and, many others, they probably get more service to the spirits than I'll probably ever be in my life, with that commitment and dedication to make that church and bring people from all over the country would come to that church,
Well, I remember you saying years ago, and I know that you still say it now, when we go to the spirit world, we have to answer to all of those contacts we've given, and maybe the ones that aren't so good or haven't been the best.
And this is what worries me, particularly in demonstrations, So, yes, we can all get things wrong. We can all make mistakes. We never all, no matter how good we are, how experienced we are, there'll always be those moments of times that we're not as receptive as we should be. But what worries me today, because today the style of demonstrating mediumship in a large percentage of cases where people just give this list of information, complicated stories, and throw it out to the whole audience. Well, you've heard me say, every audience has its body snatchers. They'll take anybody who's going. But what if I've got somebody's dad and he wants to speak to the daughter over here, and that message is life-saving, it's desperate for, and I let somebody over here that takes it. So my concern often in demonstration, not whether the mediumship's doubting the mediumship of receiving, but how often does that contact go to the right person?
Yeah.
Not going to have to face those people. Or, I'm saying something to somebody and their father's not said that at all. I've got to face that person's father. He's probably waiting with a big hammer to hit me over the edge, you know. So I'm going to be responsible for what I've done as a medium. We're all going to be responsible. And I actually believe it, whether it's in mediumship or in our lives as a whole, it's not the actions that will count, and that's in the pluses and the minuses. I believe it's the motive and the intent behind what we've done that will count the most, not the actual action. You know, it's like I said, people put on these spiritual overcoat. Some people don't think I'm very spiritual at all because I'm straight, feet on the ground, blunt, honest, and say it as it is. And I think I should be almost sweeter and lover and light, you know. I
don't think you're ever going to be sweetness and light, Paul, not in that sense, but I think that those who know and understand you and appreciate how you teach and your honesty know that actually you are a very loving person, but you're also very shy. You know, how did you cope with, because ordinarily you wouldn't have put yourself on a platform or a stage, would you?
No, I wouldn't. And again, this is how Gordon slowly introduced me. My first time, it was actually not in the church, it was at the Arthur Findlay College, and Gordon Higginson said, you're chairing the Wednesday evening demonstration. And then he then got me to chair the Monday night demonstrations at Longton, and then got me to start chairing the Sunday night services. And even then, after I've done this first Sunday one, he said, now, Paul, can you tell me, is there a difference? And what is the difference when you chair on a demonstration to a service? Because there is a difference. So that actually, if I hadn't done that first, I don't think I'd have ever got up and been able to stand in front of an audience to demonstrate mediumship. And actually speaking and doing the philosophy, no chance at all. Even in the circle, I wouldn't even say the prayer. And when I was like quite moving forward with my mediumship, a number of times Gordon gave me the opportunity to speak, in courses or classes, and I always refused. And then the afternoon say to me, Paul, do you think you'll ever speak? I said, you never know, one of these days I might. But I actually enjoy that part as much as anything because, especially when I demonstrate abroad, because in many countries they don't have churches, so we don't have an address with the philosophy. Yeah. So at the end of the demonstration, I always do a question and answer session. And then there's normally one question you can get your teeth into, and you can, in a way, like do an address. And when I first started doing that in Italy, I could see the effect of it, and I could see that was touching more people than the actual demonstration itself. So I was quite shy, and I can remember after I just started doing the chairing, Mary Duffy, I really loved to pieces. She was demonstrating, and she gave me a contact, and she says, Paul, I've got your grandfather, and he's standing here next to me, not next to you. She says, because she says he stands here with you when you're chairing the services to give you the confidence. Well, my grandfather had no problem with speaking in front of groups and an audience. So my grandfather was there helping me to build that confidence in the speaking side.
If you hadn't have gone down the route of being a medium, what do you think you would have been doing?
Oh, gosh. Well, firstly, all I wanted to be at the time was to be a millionaire and wanted a shop next door to Marks and Spencer's in every town and city in the country. That was my dream and my goal at that particular time. I think if I was younger and I had to choose another path now, I think I'd like to go into maybe social welfare, particularly working with young people. Because in my early years, in my early 20s, I used to work as a youth club leader. I was put in a youth club which is in one of the roughest housing estates, problematic estates in the city. And nobody else would work there. It was only me who would work there. And I did enjoy that type of work. So I think I would choose that sort of path if I had to decide and choose again. Because, and this is what we've got to remember. I sometimes say to people, why do you want to be a medium? And they say, because we want to be of service and help people. I say, yeah, but why is a medium? You can help people in plenty of other ways. there's plenty of other ways to be of service.
Yeah.
You know, somebody working in a youth club, somebody working as a doctor or a nurse, somebody working in an old people's home, in a school. If they're doing it in the quality of the spirit and with the right intent, it's equally a service as you and me as mediums. I actually wonder whether we'll actually get less points when we go to heaven than more points for working as a medium.
I do wonder myself sometimes what on earth's waiting when we go, you know, and all the things that we see in the name of spiritualism or in the name of communication on a platform. Sometimes
I think we're, you know, in a way we're partly losing the true message, whether it's because of the media, how big the media's come in the television with mediumship or whatever, I don't know. You know, but it's, you know, if the communication, not just the philosophy, but even the communication, it's not about just helping people with their grief or the problems or their health. And it's not about trying to encourage everybody to become a medium and healer. God help us, you know, if we do. What it's about is bringing a spiritual awakening, touching and opening the soul of people to find their own reality of that power and the spirit within their own soul and the quality of it, and go and live and express it in all walks of life to what quality and degree they can in their own best individual way. That's what spiritualism is supposed to be achieving. That's what the philosophy is supposed to be doing. That's what the demonstration is supposed to be doing. That's what the healing touch is supposed to be doing. And this is where we're failing. Sorry.
It's fine. I knew you would once you started. There's no stopping you. That's fine. So now you live in Germany. What do you miss about not home as in England, because I know you miss your family, but from a spiritualist point of view, what do you miss, if anything?
I actually do miss being part of a spiritualist church. I'm amazed at the amount of mediums I know. They have nothing to do with spiritualist churches. You know, some don't even serve them. Some do serve them, but they never dream of attending one as being part of it. Very few, you know, of our mediums are involved in running churches, and I'm amazed. You know, we all belong, Longton, wherever, and we all belong to the Spiritualist National Union.